That's water. That's water. That's water in my house, in my attic. So I'm up here putting up these bats, and I just scared myself, or was scared by these bags. That water was coming down this rafter here. I just ripped that bat right off of the ceiling, off the cathedral ceiling, so that I could see where it was coming from. And I was like, oh no, what did I do to my roof? How did I do that? It shouldn't be leaking. It should never leak. It should never leak in 1,000 years. Oh my gosh. And then realized that the bat was soaking wet. I have gloves on, so I didn't feel it. I thought, oh, it's kind of strange. And the paper is a little bit, and then of course, like, duh, there's a reason why the paper is a little bit stretchy and weird feeling. It's because that bat was soaked. And in point of fact, that whole bag was all water damaged. So it's going back. But I did get extras, so that won't slow me down with this install. I should have plenty without that bag to finish out what I need to finish out with this R30C. I ordered, I think, one more bag than I thought I would need. What I'm doing here is I'm running this, starting these 4-foot bats. I'm starting them where there's going to be a joint with the R49 insulation here, this bag type. It's going to run across the top. And that allows me to do patchwork here very easily. It's down low. It's right where you would want to be working instead of trying to muck about with up there. And, sure, it would have been nice if this had just lined up, but not a big deal. And I'm considering whether or not to go ahead and add in a continuous sheet of insulation foam board. Create a thermal break, because the cold will travel through these joists, these rafters. I mean, it'll travel right through those and then out through your wall if you don't have something that bridges, that prevents that from bridging from one side to the other to the drywall. And so I may run this with pink sheets depending on how many I have left over. I could always run that side another time down the road, but we'll see. So insulation is pretty straightforward, but there are some things that if you had never done it, you might not know unless someone told you. Let me show you some of the things you're going to need to know if you're doing an insulation project. So obviously the first thing is there's going to be a number on it. That's going to be dictated to you by your municipality, your county, your state, your AHJ, and this particular one is a fiberglass R30, but it is an R30C. And what that means is it is specifically designed to go into a ceiling that's sloped like this versus a flat like up here. And so normally R49 here in Oregon, but you're allowed R30C, R30 in these vaulted ceilings, these sloped ceilings, cathedral ceilings. Sorry, not vaulted, cathedral. So another thing to look at. This is a R38 that I had left over, and I'm using it on the outsides, basically just not fluffing it out as far as it could go. And the outsides don't have that vent, that material there. So that's why I'm able to do that. So this, if you get it 100% fluffed, is supposed to rest at 12 inches. So there you go right now. That's at 10.5 inches, which is about perfect for what I'm doing. And honestly, kind of hard to get it to fluff out like that after sitting legitimately probably 4 years now, 3-4 years in that bag, really tightly compressed. This is what it's like when it comes out of the bag. Okay, so you're somewhere between 6 and 8 inches. Your insulation, when compressed, your fiberglass or your mineral wool, your stone wool, they're designed to insulate best when they are fluffed to their stated depth. And if you jam a bunch into a tight space, you actually lose insulative value. It will insulate less well. One of the things you may find is that when you are fluffing these, quote unquote, they start to come apart. And that's pretty much when you need to stop. You don't want to rip them apart. But there's some different ways you can do it. So you might try this. I don't know that that's really my favorite method, to just try and pull it on the sides in particular, because it tends to tear it. So I will usually grab it on this side and kind of just shake it up and down a little bit, and then flip it. Grab the paper if you've got paper. And if it gets water damaged, it may not ever fully come apart like it should. And that whole stack over there, by the way, got water damaged on the other side there, so I probably won't use it. This craft face paper, it is not meant to be a absolute perfect seal, and you should not waste the time trying to get it that way. So you'll notice I have a little run there that doesn't have that on there, and I probably won't put it on there. It is averaged over the value of the wall that it gets the stated vapor barrier, okay? So you don't have to tape it, you don't have to try and be too perfect with it. The majority of the wall needs covered and you're good, okay? So don't overthink it. And it is not a vapor barrier, it is a vapor retarder. So it will allow some transmission of vapor to pass through. It's a very low amount, okay? So it's not a lot, but it is not like a thick mill plastic, which is a vapor barrier. And you want to be careful about using a true vapor barrier in some climates, because the ability for your walls to dry inwards is potentially going to be very useful to you in some climates, right? Now, in our climate, you'll notice that the craft face paper is on the interior wall, and that is definitely what is required in my area. I believe in the south they have it on the outside, so make sure you know which way it's supposed to face in your area. Well, as usual, we did get a snow in March this year. I don't know. It's awful pretty. I'm okay with it. And hey, while it's snowing out there, it's warming up enough that I'm gonna start delayering in here. We've got a fair amount of the upper insulation. It's nowhere near enough to actually do anything, so it must just be that I'm working hard enough, I guess. But we're making progress. I've got the board up here over top, so I have my last quote-unquote rafter in. Ties everything together real nice, which is splendiferous. I like that word. So basically we're talking about on this side, I have a little scrap to stuff in there, a little foam to do down in that corner. You can see we did a pretty poor job on our first bird's mouth. But other than that, we're going to be stuck under here next. A joy of all joys. Tight quarters and insulation on the head. And on the other side over here, we're not too far behind. I still have all these littles to go, but we're done in this part here, and it shouldn't be too bad to start working over the top of the stairs, so that's exciting. I won't use all this, I don't think. I might use pretty much all the R49 that's up here. I have another bag downstairs, plus a few, but we'll see. I have 3 bags left. I've already run through 2 bags, and that's gotten me that much on the ceiling. So I think 3 bags will finish it. The good news is that the bags come in bundles, and you have to buy them by the bundle. So I was going to have some that I was going to be returning anyway. And if I have a few more to return, I mean, they ain't cheap. It's like $80 to $120 a bag. For the R49, I think it's close to $120. And, getting potentially another $1,000 at most, but still that's a big deal. I already I don't remember if I told you this, but I think I did. The baffles, the rafter durovent, there was a confusion between myself and the order and them. I had thought it was sold by the singles, because in the store they have it cut and sold by the singles, and I gave them the number for the singles, and I don't know. They ended up ordering the tens packs. And so instead of 100, I got 1,000. I sent most of it back, but just in case I decided to do more than original, because I'd still been pleased with the dollar that the amount they'd come up with for the order, so I'd missed it, you know, and that's pretty cool. So we already got quite a bit back on that. Well, these piles behind me here haven't really moved a whole lot yet because we've been mostly working upstairs, but my dad has done about a half or 2/3 maybe of cutting and getting pieces on for the lower 8 feet of the first floor. I've got a bunch of stuff done on the upper floor, and we'll do a quick look through that in a minute here to show you what progress I've made. But right now I wanted to show you a detail on not the rim joist, but an area that I'm treating kind of similar to how I'm treating the rim joist. So here's the dining room ceiling, and outside you can see we've got our covered porch. And this space between, I wasn't sure whether I was going to leave it open or close it, and I decided to close it. But I'm thinking I might put a space where air can exchange back through it. You can see I've got zip tape, so I've taped all on the bottom all the way over, and right now there's just a gap up there at the top for part of the board, but I'm thinking I'm going to cut a hole and then put some insect screen across. I have put up this rim joist board that I'm using. This is 2-inch NGX, which is an XPS product, extruded product, and I've got a Spax head here that's taking that screw and making it into a lot better grip. You put a screw like that, I just got 2 of them on this one because it's just horizontal, but you put a screw through this and it just goes right through and pops right out because it's just styrofoam. And so what I'm going to be doing here, just like with the rim joists between the first and second floor, I'm going to be sealing it with some expanding foam on the bottom. I won't bother obviously with the top, basically just to get us up above the level of the insulation that's going to butt up against this. And it will also act, when it's at 2-inch density like that, it also acts as a perfectly fine vapor barrier. So I don't need to try and figure something else out in this void behind me crossing over. It'll just be the batt, and the vapor barrier will be down here going across. Just coincidence more than anything else, but I was really stoked about it. That little cut there is because that little triangle came off of this board right here, and it's perfect. Just one of those things that makes me pleased. Well, we have a beautiful afternoon going on outside, and inside it's fairly cool, but not so cold that I even need my second coat, much less my warm little hat. So we just finished out that little project, added some insect grate, and it's slightly woven together. Basically, I poked it in on that middle overlap. It should be fine. I'm not super worried about there being insects. Once I get that out there finished out, it's almost more of a for now kind of a thing. And that top is sealed all the way down, and there's some expanding foam where the tape doesn't get to. So we're good to start throwing insulation up here onto this top cavity and working on this particular project. My little staple gun that I bought, it's an Arrow brand, has been going pretty strong for me here. I've been really pleased with it. and having it has made a big difference on my hand. Hammer tacker isn't so bad, but that manual stapler that I had, that was pretty bad. It hurt. And that's just the price I pay for having a very damaged wrist and elbow on that same side. So that's been wonderful. It lasts, I don't know, maybe 20 feet worth of stapling at most. Probably more like, depending on exactly what the batts look like, maybe more like 15, 16 feet. And then needs a recharge. But I'm definitely putting a lot of staples in, more than is required to hold these in place. And so here's main floor. That wall doesn't need to be insulated. I don't really need to do that one, but because that's just a chunk of wood, buttoned up behind there, I felt like that might be worthwhile. Got a couple more staples to do up here, but otherwise we're done on this area, minus 2 runs there and a little bit back down there in the corner. This one's almost there. Some of the lobies. So, we've got another couple days on this floor, probably, depending on exactly how many hours I have in the, in the day to work. Let's go up to the attic real quick and I'll show you. It's the farthest along for sure. I went ahead and put all of the fire and sound, except for those 2 little bits right there. And that's because I was a little concerned getting the R49 in the middle here. I'll probably put the scraps on this side for this whole run here instead of scrapping in the rest of the way in the middle. I think that just makes more sense. And if we choose to fill these little pony walls with fire and sound block insulation, just interior insulation, it doesn't technically label a R value on it. However, it definitely does have an R value, and I'm pretty confident that it's almost certainly going to be at least equivalent to the R10 of this foam board. However, it does potentially mean that you would have less air transfer and thermal value out into those wings. I don't think I see a problem with that. Talked it over with the county, and the original house plans had these filled with insulation and then this pony wall filled with insulation up until here, and then a short run of Cathedral followed by R49. And that's a flat. That's supposed to be R49. The only way I could have achieved that would have been with spray foam, because the void there, or furring down those rooms, and I was not going to do that. And the county was not, they're not unreasonable. They were not going to require that I have spray foam. So they allowed me to run this way instead, which means R30C will work. And in these, 2x10 rafters. And it means that we're not relying on a wall here to be the R value effectively of this room in some ways. So we'll have R30 all the way down to the bottom there, even if we don't put any of the pink foam board on top of it like we have up here. And it would have only been R21 in this pony wall. So it was going to be better from the county standpoint, because we're putting in overall a thicker insulation than we would have been able to fit, and they had already approved the plans. So I think that they looked at it as, oh yeah, we didn't see that. And one thing you'll note, I still have a few little spots I might go back and fill. That one's pretty tight, so I didn't bother the first time. Same with any other little side pieces that are pretty tight. I don't want the bugs getting in. So wherever I can, I've got the bug screen there. And that won't keep out the smallest bugs, but it will keep out mosquito-sized. They won't make it through that, I don't think, and certainly flies and roaches and all that. And then I've got the spray foam wherever there seemed to be any gap at all, and that was the worst one right there, and that's completely filled. But I went along and did that on both sides prior to ever doing any of the interior work, and that should hopefully, you know, bear some benefit and prevent any nasties from getting in here. It's not really about air sealing in this particular circumstance, because you've got those vents and they're sending air up behind all of this insulation up to the, you know, the peak of the roof. However, there is something I want to talk about and go over, because I think it's very interesting. So our air barrier for the house, primarily, not in the roof, unfortunately, but in everywhere else, our air barrier for the house is the zip system board on the outside wall, and it is continuous, taped at every joint, all the way from the foundation, including to the foundation, with a special tape. I covered what that was and why I used it in a previous video, and all the way up to right here. So just below those vents, we have a continuous taped barrier, and there would normally be a need to seal on the interior that I don't feel is there. So consider what is underneath that and what is right there. You know, if you didn't have that sheathing style and that air barrier on the exterior wall, then you'd have air that would be coming in through the wall and potentially coming out all along the bottom of this board right there and around the edges, even if you didn't have the vents in there. And here we're in the bathroom, and the floor right below where we're just looking, you'd have air coming out here, 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 potentially through the sandwich top board, potentially all around this header, and there will probably still be some air that makes it through, but it shouldn't be anywhere near what it would otherwise have been. And basically your option, if you don't have that zip system sheathing on that exterior wall, is you've got to seal all of those joints. So, you know, I would have to come along and caulk the jack to the king. I'd have to caulk or seal the outside of the window header. I'd have to, you know, I mean, I'm already doing it here for some other reasons. Essentially, it's you know, a vapor barrier in this particular case, so I can run insulation that I can't return as the interior is a large part of why, and because the county wanted it to have overall as much value in it as possible. So there's two reasons why there, but this assembly is a huge leak in homes that don't have that that exterior air barrier and that don't put in some kind of caulk or sealant on those wood joints. Now, if I felt like I had the money and the time, which I don't, oh man, I do not. If I felt like I had that, then I would probably still go ahead and be ridiculous and caulk all of that, just to make sure that I reduced the transfer of air and the possibility of insects. That, you know, if there was a spot that I missed in that exterior assembly, say around a window, or, you know, if there was a small fish mouth, there were a few on the exterior tape that, you know, maybe I didn't, you know, tape over and make sure it got properly sealed or cut out and retape, then, you know, that would take care of, you know, a lot of that. However, there's a diminishing return, and windows by far are going to be where you lose a lot of your energy in a house that's anywhere near as tight as the one that we've built. So these are nice windows, but you can spend a whole lot more than we spent and get a whole lot nicer windows and still not see a massive improvement. So you kind of have to find that balance. and it's dependent on your budget. And the budget says sealing all that stuff unnecessarily, it ain't there. Good progress. We'll probably make, I'm guessing video-wise, about 2 more videos on insulation, and then we'll be ready for the next inspection. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Get most of the rest of this done.